Let me see. All right. So now we are live. And I was just saying to Lena that usually it takes some time until everything is really live. And I know it also takes some time until people, find the link and everything and really join us then. So, but in general, we're streaming live also to LinkedIn. So, if you want to, start from the beginning, you can do that later and can always go back in time, kind of do the time traveling thing if you want to see what we said at the beginning. But don't worry, we want to start with a short introduction and then dive right in, because it's always my experience is that that time flies really in the end, because it's such an important and interesting topic. So be prepared. I have a ton of questions. But I also want to invite everyone, if you have any questions, just let us know, write it in the chat. And I'm happy to ask all the questions you have. Wonderful. So I'm Julia. I'm the founder of Unwind Your Mind. We are doing an anti-stress management, or we have an anti-stress management platform, and the goal is really to meet people where they are and have a low barrier entry when it comes to stress. We want to go into companies, support companies also to create structures and strategies that are really supporting employees when it comes to dealing better with stress. And I met Lena at an event here in Berlin, and I'm really hooked by the topic, and I don't want to say too many words, but really hand it over to Lena straight away. And maybe you want to say a couple of words, who are you? What are you doing? You have the stage.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much. Yeah, we met back in October in Berlin, which was such an amazing event. And just a little bit of my background. I come from a corporate environment. I've spent about 15, 20 years in the consulting arena. I'm actually, by profession, I'm a computer programmer. And what I found myself is just basically living this life on autopilot, where every single day was the same thing over and over again. And I didn't know how to break out of that rut. I felt like I was completely stuck, and just thinking that it's going to carry on like that until the rest of my life terrified me enough to actually do something different about it. And to cut the really long story short, I got a lot into personal development. I started making big changes in my life, and eventually I quit my job to really figure out what is it that I wanted. And it was almost like following breadcrumbs. I was like blind leading the blind. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I wanted, but I just learned to trust my intuition and go step by step, and just see how things unfold, which was not easy because I'm a control person. I need to know the outcome and how am I going to do this and where am I going and all of this. So sometimes that letting go and surrendering and trusting, it was hard. And initially, I got involved with a network marketing company, and I was doing things like to sell and be that network marketer, which is actually very unnatural for me. And I found myself burnt out one day, to the point where I forgot actually how to type on the keyboard. And I remember just looking at the diary packed with meetings, and I was just overwhelmed and terrified. I was like, how am I going to handle? And the thing is, I wasn't even getting the feedback. I wasn't making any progress. I felt so trapped in this. And that's when I decided to stop. And I remember I had one call that day, which was too late to cancel. And it was this beautiful woman, and just arrived on our Zoom call. It was during the lockdown. And we started talking, and I told her everything I've been going through. And she said to me, have you heard of human design? I'm like, no, what's that? She said, I feel like it may resonate with you. So I got off the call, I Googled what's human design. And when you've got this recognition of something, it's been missing in my life, but you don't know what it was. And it was the second time in my life I've had this experience. The first time was about 3 years earlier then with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he was the person who really inspired me to start making the changes. And the second time was human design. And that was just a few days before I was flying to Moscow to volunteer at Dr. Joe Dispenza workshop. So I went on Amazon, I ordered like human design books, and I thought, well, that's going to be my time to really dive into it. And that's basically how my journey with human design started.
I like wanted to add to this is like the missing puzzle piece, like, and then all of a sudden it just makes click and you're like, now it all makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, so I totally get that. Have been there and as well. And for me, it was the same thing actually. Someone introduced human design to me, a friend, like, and she was like, "You're a projector, huh?" And then, she went through everything and I was like, now it makes all like the sense in the world. And I really love how you can use that, how you can facilitate that knowledge in, also like, when like in business really, because I think most people are always like, we need to package things in a certain way. So this is more the spirituality part, this is more the business part, and this is maybe like, I don't know, like whatever it is, right? And I feel like, but this is not how it works. Like for me, like the holistic approach definitely makes more sense because we can just use the tools that are out there, like, and facilitate them in such a way that in the end we package them all together and be like, it's actually really helpful, and it's actually more helpful than like going like always by the book. So my
Totally.
first question in regards to this, I mean, like the title is how we can use human design in building teams, but maybe it would be great to give a short introduction into what human design actually is.
Yeah, so human design, I would actually call it like a system of differentiation. It shows us how truly unique we are because obviously we know, right? You and I sitting here, we look different, biologically we're differently, physically, chemically, but it goes a lot further down. It goes into our energetic DNA, our energetic configuration, and energy is everything. I mean, energy is our highest currency because without energy, there's nothing, right? We can't make decisions. We can't show up. We can't stay productive. There's like nothing. If anybody ever had an energetic burnout, they'll probably resonate with it. So human design really shows us our DNA, energetic DNA structure, and based on that, how we actually genetically wired to optimize our energy, to make decisions we trust, to communicate. It shows us our natural strength, abilities. It also shows us our vulnerabilities and where we are susceptible to what I call conditioning. So basically, why we are always trying to be someone who we are not, right? And that takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort, like comparing ourselves to others, like doing something just for the sake of doing it or because we've always done that. And human design really helps us to come back to who we are, to our true nature.
I was still on mute. Yeah, I love that. It's like also, I had another friend and she's also like very into human design. And she was like, like after me understanding how the different profiles can actually, be used in a certain way, I understood that my working student, for example, like she's a generator and it doesn't make sense to give her like, the same tasks as I would be happy with, to do them because she's a projector as well. And she's like, I run differently and she needs a whole different approach to leadership. And I think this is so important to understand also, especially for leaders, that, this is something we cannot separate from a person. Like the way, like, and it's actually like there is another story. At the beginning of my 20s, I was leading a team. So very early, in my career. And there was also this one woman. And, I'm always like, you're free as a bird. There's just two different pillars. Like, if you stay within that framework, I'm fine. Like, go and explore. And she was always so like kind of puzzled. And I think now, like, if I would check her human design profile, I think maybe she's also a generator, like, so she needs like concrete to-dos from me, and she couldn't really like work with me from that angle, being like, oh yeah, I'm free as a bird, like I can just apply curiosity and everything. Yeah, but like I didn't know that back then, and now it really helps me. Like we're currently also creating new teams. Like I'm looking for new co-founders, etc. And everyone has to go through the chart so that I can see what kind of person the person is, so that I can, like, not really make some assumptions, but it helps me navigate through this a little faster. Yeah, so that's my experience with it. Yeah, I don't know if you had, like,
Yeah.
did you do anything similar? Like, was there any similar stories you could tell, or is it really that you just went through the human design and was like, yes, that makes sense, and then
Yeah, for me, it was the deep sense of recognition, like what you just said. Some people don't have, like, when you say, oh, you freeze a bird to do what you like, but some people need, firstly, they need direction. So in human design, it's called the G sense. And that also depends whether it's got consistent energy or not, because without it, you can feel like kind of almost lost in the environment, because every day you'll be expressing yourself differently, but while if you've got a consistent energy to it, you really need guidance and direction. Then also, I just remember, years ago, when I was consulting, I was in Toronto at one of the companies with my CEO then. And he said, Lena, I want you to initiate conversations more, but he's like talking. He starts all the conversations. And I said, there quietly. He's like, I really need you to speak out more and just pick up and start conversations. And I couldn't. My voice just would not work. And now that I know that I'm a generator, I'm not here to initiate with my voice. I'm more here to respond. And that's why, also when I started my business, I was trying to go live on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I hated every minute of it because I had nothing to respond to. And I'm not here to use my voice to initiate. I mean, I'm not saying I can't, but the energy, the intention is just very different. Whereas, like, you now having conversation, you've invited me, and, I'm like responding to your questions now. It's going to just come out very differently. So, like when you work in a teams, and if a person, for example, if they're not really designed to initiate conversation, they can almost feel like unseen, unrecognized, like their words not matter because they speak out of turn. And it's all about where you are, who you're with, and the timing. And the timing is crucial piece. And only about 9% of population, they're called manifestors, they have that motto to their throat. It's meaning it's like they speak and they're heard. They're here to initiate, they're here to start, they're here to be first, to impact. My daughter's a manifestor, and when she speaks, everybody hears her. When me and my son speak, she's like, what? Like, no clue what's going on, right? So even understanding them within your teams, who needs more time for downtime, like projectors, like reflectors, who has the consistent energy to do things, to build things. That's generators, manifesting generators. Who's here to go first? Who's here to have that vision and idea and impact others, to get others started, to initiate the project? That's manifestors. So understanding that, you can create teams where everybody's really playing to their strengths and not trying to be someone who they're not.
Absolutely. And we actually received the first question. So thank you, Joel, for asking, how would you suggest to introduce human design as an organizational tool?
Well, organizations already use other tools, right? I mean, it's a profiling tool. I mean, they use Myers-Briggs, they use DISC, StrengthsFinder. There's so many other tools that are using. So, I mean, I guess from human design perspective, it like I remember reading this article a while ago. They called human design the secret recipe for recruiting, and it says it's got a bit of a woo-woo factor to it. So I mean, it's a blend of sciences that consist of ancient and modern sciences, and it does not require you to go through all of the questions to answer in order for me really to understand how you operate, right? So it just starts with open-mindedness, obviously, because we need that for human design, as it is based on a date, time, and a place of birth, which is very similar to astrology, except in my opinion it's not really like astrology at all. So, and that's how you introduce it. I just think that the benefits of it outweighs the woo factor for me personally. And once again, I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were like interested, but you could see they were skeptical. And I'm like, look, it's just an invite into experiments, right? You can experiment with it, take what resonates and take what does, and leave what does not. But what I found with human design is like helps you to give you this verbiage, to assign this verbiage to things you couldn't really express before. You're like, that's what I do that. This is why I'm repeating the same pattern. This is why I'm stuck in this. That's why I don't feel seen and recognized. It creates so much awareness about you, and it really then encourages you to take steps to break out of the same patterns and the ruts.
Yeah, and like, is that like, how would you then, like, just as an addition or maybe an extension to Joel's question, like, how would you use this tool in recruiting? Like, would you be as open and maybe like approach the candidate and ask, like, time, date of birth, etc., or would you hesitate?
Well, I think if it's like a policy, right, in a company, I guess you can share it with the new starters and say, we would love to assess you on a really, kind of a deep level so we can understand how you best fit into this role, which tasks you would naturally excel in, where your strengths, what would energize you, what would motivate you, what would inspire you. I think when you go to that with someone who's joining your company, they'll be like, wow, that's amazing, right? I mean, if I had to go for a job interview and they said to me, I want to assess you, but I just need your date, time, and place of birth. And based on that, I will know how you can thrive here, how you can reach your full potential. What, am I going to say no? Well, maybe some people, I wouldn't say no. So,
I love that. How is that though? Like, I mean, you go, speak at companies, but also I can imagine that you maybe also like work with companies together. Is that the case?
yeah, so I speak with companies. I work with some companies. So far, to be quite honest, like people are very curious about human design. They understand like different types and that, but not a single person. And I've spoken at many events have asked me exactly how human design is calculated. Interesting, right?
Do you think like they don't do that out of fear or because they just lack a little piece of curiosity and asking the right questions?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think it may be both. I think it's obviously the curiosity that is there, but it's still something so new that, just understanding the different energy types, how we wire genetically to make decisions. I think it's something that's still sinking in. I mean, based on that, like when we met in Berlin and I did a few other events, live events after, I had some people come to me just directly and saying, I really want to know my human design. So based on that, I've done a lot of reading since then. But in companies, it's more like, this is how you guys use energy. Only because you can be productive from 8 till 5 doesn't mean that somebody else can be next to you. Just because you feel confident to go and like to make decisions like on the spot, don't expect somebody else to be as spontaneous because they may actually need to sleep on it. They really may need time. So just bringing that awareness of how different we are. And when I run workshop, it's more like generic, just talk about different types, different energies. But it's always like being in the back of my mind when I speak to companies that don't really say, how do you calculate human design? I'm still waiting for that question.
So that's an invitation to everyone out there listening, right? Like next time you have a workshop, like go and ask her. I was wondering, like, are people then like, inviting you to the companies, or is it more that you really like then go against your, strategy and start initiating?
It's a lovely question. So about a year ago, yeah, I mean, I was reaching out, I was doing this. And then more and more as the time went on, I was like, I'm not living according to my strategy. And I felt it. The thing is, the more I was doing this work, the more disconnect I feel, right? Whereas before I felt uncomfortable, I don't want to do that. Now it's like my body would just not move at all. And I've stopped completely like reaching out. And it's interesting because even earlier this year, I've decided I'm not doing anything. I only even post on social media when my gut says like go for it. When I get this like sacral like yes, it feels so good. And normally those ideas come to me when I'm on my run or when I meditate. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let's see how it evolves. And I'll sit to write something and it will just come out. And as a result, I've had quite a lot of opportunities come through to me because of that, because I'm not pushing, because I'm waiting to respond to something, because I just paused. And when I have that free time, instead of filling it up with things to do, I just fill it time with being, just literally like maybe meditating or journaling, using my imagination, really exploring whatever the potentials within me rather than potential out in outside of the world. And because of that, it's like the whole world around you, the physical, starts readjusting and mirroring your inner reality. So that's been my focus. And the more I live that way, the more my mind gets blown, really.
Yeah, or you also could, because like Angie, the one that organized
Yes.
everything, she's a manifester. So she's the one, like, I let her, initiate all the conversations. Or I mean, that's not really true. Like, I start initiating conversations, although it's like always like my strategy is waiting for invitation, right? But it still somehow works because it's more like a discussion, like a conversation we have, and then like I'm like, would you like, to speak with me, like in an online space, to just share the wisdom, share the knowledge and everything? And for some reason it still always works, but like, all the like time and date and everything, this is everything like she does just to make sure, like, it goes with her strategy and stuff. It's kind
Yeah,
of
and look, and it doesn't mean we can never initiate. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like I will never. So, like a few weeks ago, I just thought like I was like, what would I like to do today? I'm like, I don't want to write a post. I don't want to do this. I'm like, you know what? Why don't? And it's just like an intuitive feeling. It's like go reach out to some conferences, some live events, because that's where my passion lies in speaking at live events. And I just sent a few emails because I felt it in my body, and that's what I responded to. Right? I didn't wait for anything to pop in. And because of that feeling, like I got real good feedback because of that, right? But instead of like where in the past I would be sitting there, I'm like, I've got to say something, I've got to write something, because it hasn't been 3 days since, I haven't promoted my business. Now there's none of that resistance, there's none of that push. It's more like, what would I feel like, what would feel nice for me right now? And some days nothing feels nice, and I just let it go. It just creates like that more momentum and more flow. And even in my job, like I'm also for now a contract to a bank, Morgan Stanley, as a BA. Sometimes I get blocked up. Like I'll have a challenge, and I would sometimes actually pause and I would sit on a couch for an hour, and I'm like, okay, well, what is the next right step I can do? And then there's never, not once, a case where I didn't know the next step after that, right? So we can do that, or we can run around trying to find a solution. We can gather more data, we can gather more facts. And I'm not saying it's not important, but there needs to be a point where we've got the data, we've got facts, we've got opinions, but something just does not feel right. And that's where you like back off, and it's like, okay, what would feel really good? What would I love as an outcome of this? And then you work with that energy and just see what turns up. So it's just a very different approach to working, because people think when they pause, they do nothing. But in my opinion, that sometimes that inaction is the best action we can ever take.
It's for me, like, there is another thing coming in. It's like the whole like what I also teach in Yin Yoga, right? Like, and I'm going to ask, like, because there's two more questions in the chat in a second. I just wanted to add to this, because what is very important, and I think what we kind of miss nowadays, is the balance. We are exposed to so many information and triggers and impulses and whatever, and we also need the time to digest. And like, this digestion time is really important. Also, like, we can use that to self-reflect, and then decide again. Like, we always have that opportunity to take a step back and be like, okay, how will I proceed from here? How do I want to proceed from here? And you said something very like important like before, and I just want to repeat that again. Like, only because this is a design doesn't mean you have to apply it, like, you know like in a certain way all the time. No, those tools are designed that we use them as a framework, and that we see them as an opportunity to navigate through this whole chaos a
Yes.
little easier. But it doesn't mean that we have to apply every rule every step along the way, because then we kind of misuse it, right? Like, I
Well,
think this
exactly.
is,
Then you
yeah.
can creating control, right? I mean, the whole
Yeah.
point here is like, let go of the control. It's just like sometimes, we just need to trust that higher intuition, that something, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. So it's not about really controlling. It's actually more letting go. And that's what I always say with human design: experiment with it, right? See what works. And especially once you've been playing it for a while, you're like, okay, well, my strategy is to wait for invitation. Like, well, not mine, yours, right? As a projector. So does it mean like if I want to invite my friend for dinner, I can't? Well, of course you can, right? It's like you can. Maybe if your friend gave you invitation, it may feel easier for you. but you can still take a step, and maybe you've done it twice and it doesn't work. You're like, hang on a second, I'm actually pushing against something here. Let it go, right? And it's like with anything really. But all I know is that when I initiate, the opportunities I get, they're not as good as when I respond to something. And that's like been proven. And that's with everything, with business, personal life, everything.
Yeah, that is so me, and maybe that makes a little bit more sense now, because I also, like, everything is defined here, like my centers. So it's like I love to share that knowledge, and so it just comes out like naturally, and I'm maybe like speaking the invitation, but like usually people also are like responding so easily to that, and if I feel it's not as easy, then I know, okay, yeah, I might act it against my strategy, but still it felt okay to do so, right? Because
yeah, it's just not going against your own nature, and like if it doesn't feel good, even if you initiate it, and maybe it's a great opportunity, if you initiate it, it feels resistance, let it go. It's like my motto: if it doesn't flow, let it go. That's it.
Absolutely. Cool. I go over to the questions because I really like them. So the first one is from Juliane. Hi. Is there a particular type in human design that is recommended for team leading or for leading a team?
Well, I mean, I think anybody can lead the team with the self-awareness. I think self-awareness is probably the prerequisite. You don't need human design. Yeah, human design will amazing tool for that. But if you know who you are, you can self-lead and you understand people, I think you're just a natural leader. But in terms of like when it comes to human design, there's obviously two types straight away pop into my mind. One is the manifester, simply because they're just so natural at initiating, because the team leader needs to be the person with those ideas, with with the big vision. And these are the guys who initiate things, and then they like need the support of others to finish things at the start, because they don't have that finishing energy. And without the support, they can often be seen who people that start things but don't finish. So manifestors make like leaders, like real natural, the more natural it is. And also projectors, projectors, the whole thing for projectors. So every type has their own theme, right? So like for generators, it's more like generators are here to know themselves. That's the whole thing. It's like, who am I? Like, I don't care who you are, but who am I? While for projectors, it's like, how can I empower you? How can I help you to succeed? How can I guide you and direct you? So because of that, and projectors also make amazing leaders. But that's not to say like generators or reflectors can't be.
Cool. Thank you. Juliana, let us know in the chat if that's okay, or if you have any extension to the question, because otherwise I would also proceed. There is one from Zach. Can you suggest any human design tools that can be used at the time of recruitment of new staff?
Really again?
Can you suggest any human design tools that can be used at the time of recruitment of new staff?
So human design is the tool. That's the name of a framework. Like you get Myers-Briggs, DISC, StrengthsFinder, human design. There is a website called My Body Graph, and you can go in there and you can even pop your details in, and it will generate your human design. And then it will tell you which type you are, which authority, we can touch on it in a minute, this is how you wired to make decisions, and it will show your charts. I mean, you will need probably someone else to help you interpret it, but it's a great starting point. And if you're interested, then you can just go on Google and just even read up more about your type.
Yeah. I can also recommend really just, type in human design, and there is like a lot of websites that offer you, the free chart, and then you can read up upon it. Like there is also podcasts, websites, like really there's a lot of content out there. And I'm not so sure. I will like raise that question, but maybe I think, well, let's see what you will say. So which human design profile would be relevant for someone who's doing people-focused work, HR functions, and working with customers?
It's not just relevant, it's all relevant. It's just who you are. That's it. I mean, human design really helps you to remember who you are rather than trying to be someone who you're not meant to be. it creates that awareness, like, it helps you to take responsibilities for your own actions and behaviors and realize that nobody is doing anything to you, that everything you basically experience in the world is a reflection of how you experience yourself. But then how do you experience yourself if you don't really understand why you do certain things? If you don't understand why you struggle to make decisions, or why you communicate in a certain way, or why you need more space, or why you need more time, and trying to keep up with other people who maybe don't need as much time as you, don't need as much space. And it just eliminates that self-judgment, and it really helps you to come back to basics. This is who I am. And when you know who you are, you can lead team, you can lead people, you can lead team, you can lead the world.
And maybe as an addition to that is really just to make your life also a little bit easier, because I think the more you understand about yourself, the easier it gets to really, empower your team. Also, like how you speak to others, and not just in the business world, but also like in your private life, right?
Absolutely.
Like if you know how you react in certain relationships, etc., then it will make your life easier, because there is an explanation for it, right? Like, and you maybe then know, like, this is what we were talking about before. Maybe it gets easier if you know this is your strategy, right? So I think it's important to understand that, and this is also what we're trying to do with our work in general, is like to bring people more towards the direction of really starting to self-reflect, because only if you know what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, only then you can start to really change. Because it's important to understand you cannot change your environment. You cannot change other people. It's like, it's up to them, right? Like the responsibility lays with the other people. The only thing what you can change is really your own behavior, your the way you're coping with certain triggers, etc. So I think it's really like a great tool to have and to know and to dive deep into, to have a better understanding of yourself, really. So
yeah, and you touched on an important point, is the triggers, right? Why is there so much conflict within teams, organizations, because of the triggers? So if somebody triggered me, I'm going to say, how dare you talk to me like that? Or how dare you to not talk to me like that? Whatever. Not recognizing is like, hang on a second. This is actually a great opportunity for me to learn, because something within me is just not resonating, is hurting me, it's painful for me. So let me look at myself. Oftentimes, it's somewhere in our childhood, like our parents or grandparents or friends, and that's causing the trigger that we haven't healed. And yet we're projecting then all of that onto each other, saying he did this, she said that, he said that, not understanding that's within us. And that's why I love human design. It really helps you to also understand where those vulnerabilities, where can your triggers be, and helps you to bring them to light and heal them. So then we become less reactive and more responsive.
yeah. Okay, Zach, I hope that brought a little bit more clarity, and maybe just to the last comment from you. So there is really only one human design framework. It consists out of 5 profiles. So I hope that is providing you with all the clarity you need. If not, maybe you want to rephrase your question. So just let us know here in the chat, and I'm happy to ask this. Just reading. Okay, I think Lena's answer suggests human design is more like a self-awareness tool, but I think the actionable point might be to have some cues about the personality, workability, team playing, etc. Otherwise, I'm slightly confused how human design tool may be useful within business context.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So human design basically introduces us to our energy type, and energy type shows us how we're here to use and optimize our energy. We know that some people can burn out doing certain tasks, right? Some people have more natural energy to go and work and do things, while others need to pause more frequently throughout the day. So it creates this awareness of how people best operate and collaborate in a work environment. It also helps you to understand how people make decisions. And actually, the benefits, I think, of human design, obviously, apart from us using our energy correctly rather than wasting it on things that's not meant to be wasted on, is to make decisions we trust. So just the way we are all differently, just the way we are all unique in physical, energetical sense, we also make decisions differently. And human design shows you how you are genetically wired to make decisions. So, for example, some people about 50 something odd percent of population have an emotional authority. So in human design, it's called an authority. So if you have an emotional authority, it means that when you are faced with a choice to make, your body, and it's actual chemical process that you would go through, it will go through that chemical process where you ride an emotional wave, and making decisions at the height of that emotional wave will either lead to not a good choice, not a great decision, or something even better would have come up if you just waited. So when you understand, how people within teams, and especially even leaders, if they know how they're genetically designed to make decisions, they will know, hang on a second, let me not rush into it. Like, let me sleep on it. I will get back to you. And then constantly check with yourself, like, how would I feel about this decision, rather than rushing into it, committing to something, and then later go, oh shit, what have I done, right? Other people, they find the clarity through expressing the voice, through the voice. So you all know people like that. They come to you for advice, they blurt everything out, and they're like, I know, I've decided, and off they go. So they need like a sounding board. And that's why for them to be in a place, in a team where they have somebody to listen to them, not to get the feedback or opinion, but literally to offload, is so important for the clarity. And then they will know, and they will go do something else. So basically, I just give you a couple of examples, just because then another thing you can also, when you look at a configuration of a human chart, you can see here how people are also wired to communicate. And there is difference between speaking and communicating, because when we speak, we just release pressure. And some of us really need to release the pressure because it builds up. You've got to say something, right? But communicating with impact, communicating that your word actually makes sense and they reach other people is very different. So some people literally can have this idea and they can voice it out and their voice will be heard. But for majority of us, about 91%, we need to wait for the right timing, for the right environment, for that question to come in. Otherwise, we'll just be giving unsolicited advice and nobody will hear us. And it's just going to feel very, very painful and isolated. So this is just like a couple of examples I gave you, and obviously it offers a lot more, but I'll stop there.
Well, thank you. Zach, again, let us know if that was answering your question. You can also later on go back on the LinkedIn account because we also went through how, generators, for example, need to get tasks, etc. Sometimes it's easier for them, etc. I also have another question, and I actually wanted to ask that also, at the beginning. It's more like, so you said people need to be open-minded, right? Especially within businesses. So let's assume, I'm a business owner, I'm open-minded to that. How do I approach you? Or how can we create a relationship, a work relationship, that you would come into my business and, let others know how this tool can be something to help them maybe be better team leaders, or also create more fruitful relationships at work?
Yeah, sure. So, I do speak at companies, and I speak mostly on topics of productivity, also goal settings, achieving goals, because once again, we're all different in how we set and achieve our goals, because too often we set and achieve our goals, we arrive there too burnt out and exhausted to be like, "Oh, I don't actually want it anymore." So, so something I offer companies is to come and do a presentation, workshop, or for the leaders especially, to do more one-on-one personalized human design charts for them to understand how they can optimize their energy, how they can inspire others, how they communicate, and how they make decisions. And also, obviously, to show them what their natural strengths are. And it's something I find a lot of people are not aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. Period.
Exactly. Nothing else to add.
Yes.
Done.
Okay. Yeah, actually that. And I also on the side read Zach's answer. He says, excellent answer. Thank you, Lena. Now I think I need to find out an easier way to get to know the human design profiles of my team so that I understand their individual strengths. And yes, that's it. And I think this is amazing. So you've been influencing another person. That's great. And I think, Zach, I will also want to highly encourage you to go out and really speak to Lena, and maybe, you can come together, create a workshop together, because also my experience is that sometimes it's easier to have an external consultant doing that type of work, because sometimes it can be hard for teams that are already existing for a long time, or maybe just in general for a longer amount of time, it can be hard, like all of a sudden you come in with a new approach and they're like, why is that now, right? Like, so sometimes it's easier to have an external consultant, like being like that Trojan horse and trying to, bring something in. And like, I don't know if you made a different experience, Lena, but like, yeah, that would be my suggestion on that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody must work the way they feel is the right thing for them. If they want to, I know some people hands-on, and also that's actually another thing we didn't touch on human design. So obviously our energy type is important, 5 energy types. I've mentioned about how we make decisions. I gave some example. Another really big element to it is called the profile. So a profile in human design is basically our costume. It shows us how we really here function at our best. So like to give you an example, profile consists of 2 numbers also. One number, it represents something you're consciously aware of and something you can control. And another number is something you less aware of, maybe not even aware of, but others see it within you. So if you have, for example, profile with number 1, it means you're here to study. You really need to have those foundations. You need facts, you need data before you feel safe, before you feel secure to go and share it with someone else, right? So I found when I work with those kind of people, they can actually dig into human design and learn and figure things out, because they love that information. While for me, for example, I have a number 3 in my conscious, so I'm aware of my number 3. If I need to do research, it will just drive me insane. It's like for me to get the data and facts, it just feels more boring to me. So the way I progress through things is through trial and error, through experimenting. I tweak things. I will do it. If it doesn't work, I toss it aside. That doesn't work. So you just think how much resilience it creates, because people are so scared to fail. But if they have number 3 in their profile, whether it's conscious or unconscious, they need to fail. There's no failure, right? It's like you just make mistakes, but then by the time you figure out what works, you figure out everything that does not work. And that's what makes also those people valuable. For other people, for example, for them, like their community is everything. This is where all the opportunities come from. They're here to impact people they know within their community. For others, they really need some space and some time to really, like if you drag them into the meeting, put them on a spot, they will fall apart. They really need to retreat and have the time and space to figure things out. So profile is also a massive thing in human design, and it's just like kind of enhances your energy type and who you are as a person.
Thank you. There is another question comment. Hi, I'm a 3-5 emotional generator, and I disagree about being given tasks. If I'm given, let's say, tasks to clean the toilet, clean up mess, tasks on updating spreadsheets and documents, I would refuse such tasks because I can't stand such tasks. Okay. Is there a question in this, like,
Yeah.
Kit?
So,
Or
so
is
what's the question?
is it just that you disagree with what I said before?
But I can speak to that because I'm a 3-5 generator. So we're very similar, except I'm not emotional. And for me, and it's interesting you said spreadsheet. It's for me, it's the biggest nightmare. I really don't like spreadsheets. And I will give you an example. In my work, if I given a task that I don't feel excited by, or there is some sort of fulfillment, I will really, really struggle with it. It's, like in the past, I used to design workflows, write software, that I can do. And I remember sometimes working through the night, to deliver a project, but give me to do a documentation, give me like one spec to write. I will drag it out for as long as I can. I would feel exhausted by midday. And for generators, it's all about a passion and excitement. And just because we have the energy to do things, it doesn't mean that we have energy to do everything, because if there is no excitement, there is no energy. And when we push through it, this is when we get frustrated and burn out. And that's how I burnt out. So I think maybe that's where you were going with it. Like if you don't like something, it drains you, you refuse to do it. Good for you.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think this is also like a good closing statement, because as I said, I knew it from the start, like 45 minutes, they run by like this. But what I wanted to say is, like, everyone who registered via Eventbrite will receive an email from me with, your like email and website and everything that you would like to share. So don't worry about that. If you haven't been if you haven't registered via Eventbrite, just let me know, reach out to me. You see it everywhere basically. My email address as well. But is there any other thing you would like to say, Lena? Is there anything that's missing kind of to make it a little bit more complete?
Yeah, I think we just, all of us, without human design, doesn't matter. We need to become more aware of our feelings. How things make us feel. How do we feel around certain people? Do they drain us? Do they energize us? And really become more aware of it, because this is our guidance point. This is our intuition trying to tell us when something is not right for us. And when we push against it, we push against our natural flow, natural rhythm of life. And we just create more resistance rather than finding the ease and flow. So just, my advice to you guys, if you want to take it, pay more attention to how you feel rather than what you think you should be doing and what others expect of you, because that will really change your life.
Thank you. I actually have a very good book for this. It's called Emotional Agility by Susan Davis. So if you haven't read about it or haven't read it in general, I can highly recommend it, because it also gives you a better insight into how we're hooked, and how what basically goes wrong, and why it's so important to become aware of it, or to become more aware of it. So thank you for saying that. Thank you everyone for attending. Again, I will reach out to everyone, and then thank you, Lena, for joining this
Thank you for
great
having
session.
me.
It was really amazing, truly inspiring. So thanks again, and then have a wonderful start into the weekend later. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Bye.